near Pingree Road and Metro Heritage Corridor. Train 916 due in at 7:32 is running 20 minutes late. Still have an accident on the I-190 ramp westbound at 294 that's off to the side. Accident in Willowbrook, Route 83 and 75th, and in Elgin, westbound Lake at Randall. Traffic signals out Harlem and Bryn Mawr on the northwest side as well. And also watch for CTA southbound Red Line trains not stopping in Argyle or Lawrence until Friday with some track work. Want the same internet but more privacy? DuckDuckGo's got you covered. They help millions of people like you get privacy online without any trade-offs. With one download, you can search and browse privately, avoiding trackers, all for free. DuckDuckGo, privacy simplified. I'm Mary Vandeveld from the IDOT Traffic Center, reminding you to drive responsibly. It really is a matter of life or death.
Now the forecast from the WGN Chicago Weather Center. Here's meteorologist Morgan Kolkmeyer.
Good morning. We'll see temperatures go from the 70s this morning to the low 80s this afternoon, and that's with humidity continuing throughout your morning and starting to get better by your mid to late day. Dew points start out in the 70s, so very, very muggy start. Your temperatures are also mostly in the 70s, and then we'll start to cut those dews into the 50s and 60s by your late day hour. So a little better the later we get. Scattered storms, a few of them popping up this morning and a few on-off showers this afternoon. Overall, many dry hours expected today, and then we'll keep a slight rain chance until about 10 o'clock tonight. Decreasing clouds after that to a mostly clear sky overnight and a low temperature in the upper 50s. Back near 80 tomorrow, but dry with more sunshine. From the WGN Weather Center, I'm Morgan Kolkmeyer.
Partly sunny at 74 now at O'Hare, 76 at Midway, 76 along the lakefront. It's 77 this morning in Lansing. An off-duty Chicago police officer has died from an apparent carbon monoxide poisoning on the northwest side. Police say the 36-year-old man and a 29-year-old woman were discovered unresponsive inside a home in the 3900 block of West Ainsley. That's the Albany Park neighborhood at about 8 o'clock last night. People's Gas telling WGN there were extremely high levels of carbon monoxide in the home. The two were transported to Swedish Hospital in critical condition, where the officer later died. He has since been identified as Zhu Meng. Large police presence gathered at the hospital, and officers stood at attention and saluted as his remains were loaded into an ambulance and taken to the medical examiner's office. There are growing calls to remove police from Chicago public schools. A group of about 50 students, parents, and politicians rallied outside CPS, saying the classroom is no place for police officers. Last year, the city spent $33 million to fund officers in the schools. Protesters want that money to be used instead for desperately needed student services. Former CPS student was among those speaking out yesterday.
Not feel like a jail. School should not feel like a prison. Our youth should be able to go to school. Our youth should be able to get an education and not have to worry about being arrested.
Historically, police were called into schools to protect from outside sources. But what has become now, police are now they are criminalizing the kids inside the school that they're serving.
That's Sixth Ward Alderman Roderick Sawyer. Mayor Lightfoot says she understands the community's concerns, but doesn't support pulling police out of schools. The festivals and concerts that mark summer in Chicago will have to wait until next year because of COVID-19. All large outdoor city-run events through Labor Day have been canceled. That includes Taste of Chicago, Lollapalooza, and the Air and Water Show. Lollapalooza organizers plan to offer a virtual event, but the $250 million that the festival usually brings in will be lost. Mayor Lightfoot says she's not willing to risk lives.
The reality is bringing 100,000 people in mass, in close quarters, which is what the daily head count is every single day of Lollapalooza, bringing that many people from all over the country downtown in Grant Park every single day, we might as well just light ourselves on fire.
The mayor says she's finalizing plans to reopen the city's lakefront. Catholic school students within the Chicago Archdiocese will return to the classroom this fall. Students left classrooms in mid-March due to the pandemic. Schools will now regularly disinfect high-touch areas, use plexiglass barriers in common areas, as well as provide PPE, that personal protective equipment. Sanitizer, temperature checks will also be made when necessary. Remote learning will still be offered to students who wish to stay at home. The police are looking for a person who robbed a postal carrier on the south side, and a $25,000 reward is being offered. More on that from WGN's Pam Jones.
The incident happened June 1st at 116 Southwestern Avenue. 3 men and 1 woman were seen in security camera images attacking the postal worker. The 4 suspects got away in a white Jeep Cherokee. A $25,000 reward is being offered for information leading to their arrest and conviction. Pam Jones, WGN News.
And now with WGN Sports, here's Dave Ennett.
Good morning. It's sounding more and more like we will see baseball, even if it comes down to MLB implementing about a 50-game season without an agreement with the players. The union has come up with its latest proposal for 89 games, but with full prorated salaries. The players appear determined to get the full prorated amount.
I think they're going to get it. I just don't know if it's going to be over 70 or 72 games or over 48 games. And that's the big question at this point. Even though we're in the deal zone, are the owners going to recognize that the players are not bluffing on this?
That's ESPN's Jeff Passan. One thought is if there's no agreement, many big stars will sit out. Either way, time is running out. Tonight's the draft. The White Sox have identified 15 players that might take with the 11th pick. 5 picks before the Cubs choose. The Bears have cut their offseason program short. They'll Zoom one more time tomorrow, then the veterans are off till camp. A football player at Iowa has entered the transfer portal. Sophomore linebacker Dylan Doyle, who started 3 games, announced his decision on Twitter. He is the son of Iowa strength coach Chris Doyle, who was placed on administrative leave over the weekend amid allegations of racism in the program. Dave Ennett, WGN Sports.
Your money on WGN. Futures are pointing toward flat open on Wall Street later. Dow futures are up 25 points now. S&P futures are up about 8 points as well. NASDAQ futures of nearly 3/4. Markets around the world generally mixed, with losses in Europe and in parts of Asia. Also this morning, there is a word that a new report on the coronavirus impacting a Tesla plant in California shows that coronavirus positive test was made right after the plant was allowed to reopen last month. A pair of workers tell the Washington Post that at least 2 of their colleagues were infected and ordered to stay home at the time. You remember that Tesla and that county in California were arguing about whether or not it was safe to reopen. Gojo Industries is experiencing a business boom because of the pandemic. The Akron-based Ohio maker of Purell hand sanitizer is opening a new sanitizing spray factory in one community there and planning for a new warehouse as well. Company officials say the new facilities will create 200 jobs, but more importantly, will allow Purell to produce even more of that hand sanitizer to meet international demand. A number of store shelves still empty from that product not being there. Now, I'm Steve Grzanich on Chicago's very own 720 WGN.
Good morning and welcome to Wednesday, the 10th day of June. Bob Sirott and company on the road with you at 10 after 7. Technology can be dangerous. I was sending somebody a message yesterday, a text message, and I meant to punctuate it with a smiley face emoji, and I hit the crying face by mistake, and I sent it. So, did you ever make an emoji mistake? Very embarrassing. Be careful out there. Could have been worse, I guess, but you need precautions. I still say there needs to be a reminder after you send a text or an email, something that would pop up and flash the words, "Are you sure?" And then you'd think about it a little bit.
Well, there are some that, of course, not on like Twitter, not on text messages necessarily, but say, do you want to send? Are you sure you want to send this without an attachment?
Oh yeah,
you get that one once in a while.
Yeah, one that says, think about it. Yeah. And I guess, before any social media post, that should come up.
When in doubt, don't hit send.
Yeah, we used to say when writing stories for broadcast, when in doubt, throw it out.
Yep.
So we can watch this Major League Baseball draft tonight on is it ESPN and MLB?
MLB and ESPN both have it. Starts at 6:00. And there's MLB's running a preview show starting at 4:00. So
well, we have nothing else to do.
Yeah, get
maybe
some popcorn
we'll
and go for it.
Well, it's interesting to look back at some of the previous selections in past years. The White Sox picked up Tim Anderson and Chris Sale. The Cubs, of course, they really lucked out with Baez and Bryant and Schwarber. And let's see, the Cubs, what number
16.
do the Cubs have? They have 16.
Yeah.
And the White Sox, what
11.
Number 11. And so the Cubs, you would think, would go for pitching. I don't know about the White Sox.
I think most teams, given their druthers, if there's pitching there, would go for that. Now, Mike Shirley, who's running the draft now for the White Sox, had a conference call last week, and he said they've got 15 names on their list. But, I think the Cubs absolutely, if they can get a pitcher there at number 16, you would think that's where they would be going. They need pitching in their organization.
Yeah, and you'd think that the White Sox, assuming this year is either we're not going to have one, we're not going to have a season, or it's going to be very abbreviated, that the Cubs might get hurt more by this with, for example, you talk about the need for pitching with the veterans like John Lester. How much more does he have in the tank? How many more years does he have? Whereas on the other side of town, the Sox are a lot younger, aren't they?
They are younger. I guess what you would look at with more of a veteran team, and the Cubs still have a lot of youth, but if there's a partial season, which I guess if there's a season, it's a partial season. Mm-hmm. A guy like Lester would benefit.
He's rested.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So some of the older guys, it could help.
What did I hear yesterday? Rizzo took off like 25 pounds.
25 pounds. And he posted a picture of himself without a shirt on. Which
wow.
You got to feel pretty good about how you're doing.
Oh, where's that?
Mary, I'm sure you can find it on Twitter or somewhere.
Was he on the Kyle Schwarber diet?
No, he's working with a trainer in Florida, and apparently just working really hard every day, and was able to drop the weight.
I mean, Schwarber was really heavy, but you didn't think of Rizzo as being that heavy. Although when you saw him up close, you realized how big a guy he is. Where sometimes you wouldn't think that of Rizzo. Well, maybe he'll pick up some speed now that he's lighter.
Maybe. Sometimes.
Yeah.
Can help.
Not known for his base stealing. Of course, but nobody steals bases anymore anyway.
Well, but his agility and his defense have always been really good.
The best.
So, yeah. So, I mean, from that standpoint, you think he's got to be pretty flexible, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, jump up on top of the brick wall there and on top of the tarp to make a catch. Yeah.
7:15 right now. We'll get some extremely local news from Block Club Chicago here momentarily. Let's get an update on a few things in the meantime. We've got some rain clouds back downtown. What's happening, Steve?
Yeah, we're watching a few scattered showers, but it's clearing up pretty nicely this morning. We've been watching some thunderstorms, too, that are still there around Pontiac, moving into Kankakee County. But for the most part, it looks like the rain is done today. Still going to keep a 40% chance of showers in the forecast with partly sunny skies today and muggy, but decreasing humidity as we move into the evening hours today. High near 81. Mostly cloudy with a chance of showers tonight. Decreasing clouds overnight, low 58. Mostly sunny tomorrow. Expect a high near 80. Partly sunny at O'Hare, 74. It's 76 at Midway, 76 at the lakefront, and it's 77 in Joliet.
Baseball players make a new proposal to the owners, this for 89 games. They want their full prorated salaries. MLB is expected to say no, but they're still expected to at least be a season of 50 or so games. NASCAR is allowing a limited number of fans back at two upcoming races, one in Miami and one at Talladega. 1,000 fans at the first one, 5,000 at the next one. And it was a pretty good day on the water for Michael Jordan yesterday, taking part in the Big Rock Blue Marlin tournament off Morehead City, North Carolina. Jordan and his crew hauled in a Blue Marlin of 442 pounds, only the sixth largest anybody hauled in yesterday.
There are no major problems on the roadways. Just on I-190 and the ramp westbound at 294, an accident still off to the side on that ramp. But we're seeing a lot of public transportation issues this morning. CTA Blue Line suspended between O'Hare and Harlem due to earlier police activity. A bus shuttle is running between O'Hare and Harlem. Green Line is running now, but does have some delays on it. CTA Red Line not stopping at Argyle or Lawrence until Friday. Metro Heritage Corridor train 916 due in at 7:32 is running 20 minutes late. Accident in Arlington Heights, westbound Palatine at 53. Also in Willowbrook at 83 and 75th. And starting tonight, the inbound Eisenhower to the outbound Kennedy, that ramp will be closing at 8 o'clock tonight. This was suspended from a week ago. They were supposed to start this. It's going to be closed for 4 months as part of the Jane Byrne Interchange project. And you'll have to take the outbound Ryan, do a U-turn detour at Taylor Street. I'm Mary Vandeveld from the IDOT Traffic Center, reminding you to drive responsibly. It really is a matter of life.
The American Lung Association is here to help you through the COVID-19 pandemic with science-based information you can trust. They have resources on protecting lung health, especially for those with lung disease, medical experts to answer your questions, webinars, and online communities. Visit lung.org to stay informed about COVID-19 and lung health. And while there, if you're able, your donation to their life-saving mission is needed now more than ever. Visit lung.org.
When it comes to the weather, we all want to know, what did Skilling say? Watch for updated forecasts from Chicago's most trusted meteorologist, Tom Skilling, weeknights on WGN TV.
It is coming up on 7:21. Let's get some extremely local news. Seamus Toomey on the line from Block Club Chicago. Hi, Seamus. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, Bob. Good morning.
Tell us about why Chicago bar owners are upset, feeling like they have been left behind.
Well, when the city eased restrictions on the dine-in ban last week, they allowed anyone that serves food, as you know, to move out into the street or into their patio. But the restriction was you needed to be able to serve food. So bars that don't, including breweries, they were left behind. They can only stick now with curbside pickup and service, and they're still waiting for those. We've talked about before the craft cocktails to go. They're still waiting for the city council to approve that. So they've really felt like now these other restaurants, even if you could go into these restaurants and sit outside and not even order food and get a cocktail out there, they really feel like those folks are being able to slowly get back on their feet, but bars and breweries are left out in the dark in June, and a lot of them are worried they're just not going to make it until phase 4, which could come later this month.
There's a story about a bar in the South Loop, and this is kind of a positive spin on something that happened that nobody was happy about. And it's about one woman who helped save a business, right?
Right. It's actually Warehouse Liquors, which people that live in the South Loop will recognize. It's an old building with terracotta on the front at 634 South Wabash, and it's really become a neighborhood icon. It's very friendly owners there. It's independently owned, and they've got just about everything. And if not, they can find it for you. Craft beer folks love it because you can find all the hard to find stuff there. Last Saturday or 2 Saturdays ago, when some of the worst of the looting happened downtown, the security footage from the Warehouse Liquor shows that people working pretty hard to smash the door and just streaming in and beginning to loot the place. Even more disturbing, the owner, Gene Charnas, could be seen coming in and trying to stop people, and he got hit with a bottle. He got knocked down. And at one point, when he tried to close the door, he got sprayed with a chemical fire extinguisher. So he was in pretty bad shape. His son got there late, and at about the same time his son was running up to try to save his dad. A woman who had been downtown for a protest saw this going on, and came up and protected him, helped the son protect the dad, get him inside. And then she actually stood outside the front door and guarded it, tried to plead with some of the folks that wanted to get back in to go away, to move on. And they listened to her. A 22-year-old woman really just stood her ground, and they only knew her. She stayed for a couple hours from about midnight till about 2 a.m. and really until everything calmed down. She refused to come inside. She refused a bottle of water. She just said, I'm just trying to help you out here. And they only knew her by the name of Cece. So when they told this story on Instagram a couple days later, they thanked their customers for the support, and they said they really wanted to find out who this woman named Cece was that helped save Gene Charnas. Well, the woman saw the Instagram post, wrote in. Her name is Siandra Porter, told her story about how she was just there for the protest, and everything had gone so terribly wrong down in the South Loop that she knew she needed to help. And now they're hoping to get together soon. Charnas and his wife, Leslie, their son Frank Charnas, and now Siandra Porter. They hope to all come together and meet again under much better circumstances. Charnas, we talked to Porter. We talked to her, and she said, "Listen, I'm not a hero. I'm not an angel. I just helped out a neighbor." So it was a positive story amid a really bad one.
Yeah, and it's great to have some good news reported like that. And she's 22 years old, and she doesn't live in the South Loop, right? Isn't she an Avondale resident?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she'd been downtown for that night. But I think she said when she saw Gene Charnas' son running towards the store, it was a different sort of panic in his face. She knew this wasn't about property damage. This was about his protecting his father. So that's really why she stepped in, not to necessarily, save the store, but to really save the people inside.
Well, it's kind of a happy ending to the story of Warehouse Liquors there at 634 South Wabash. And finally, we have the future of the 97-year-old Jeffrey Theater. What's going to happen there, Seamus?
Yeah, the Jeffrey Theater, it's really been on its last legs in the South Shore neighborhood. It's at 71st and Jeffrey. Built in 1923, it's got a very similar story to theaters all around the country, around the city. Built as an old vaudeville house, had one screen. Developed over the years, passed hands a couple times, had a couple different lives. But now there's a plan in place to knock it down and to build an entertainment complex on the site. It would be it would have a movie theater, a dine-in movie theater. It would have a bowling alley. It would have event space. It would be 50,000 square feet and really take up the whole block down there in South Shore. So if you're going to, replace an old movie theater, I guess putting in a new movie theater is sounds like a decent trade. But it should be noted that the Jeffrey Theater has been it more or less got demolished in the 90s. They only left the facade and the lobby. The whole back of it, where the actual theater stood, was knocked down to make a drive-through for the bank that now was in the lobby. So it's not quite like the Uptown or some other theaters that are still there. The skeletons are still there, and you can rebuild. This would really be starting from scratch. So they may preserve some of the terracotta facade for elements of the new design, but the plan is if it goes through, and they're hoping it will, that perhaps by later this year they can begin the demolition process and start adding a brand new complex to South Shore.
Yeah, it'd be great if they preserve some of the architecturally significant portions of that building. But I would think that a 50,000 square foot complex with a dine-in movie theater, a bowling alley, and an event space there on the corner of 71st and Jeffrey would be more than welcome.
Right. The alderman down there, Leslie Hairston, said she can't wait for the project. It's so needed. She said we just really need some positive things in the neighborhood, and it's being put together by people who live in the neighborhood as well. So there certainly Hairston is looking forward to it and hoping that this progresses for demolition later this year.
That's what's happening in our communities. Local info from Block Club Chicago. Seamus Toomey, thanks. Talk to you tomorrow.
Okay, Bob. Thank you.
Coming up here after our 7:30 news, we'll check in with Dr. Eileen Marty, infectious disease specialist, who advises governments around the world on things like pandemics. We talk to her every week here, and lots to go over with her. Starting with that World Health Organization confusion yesterday. And we also want to talk about a new study about blood type and how it may influence the coronavirus. And Dr. Marty also takes a close look at the numbers around the country. And so we'll get to her about these spikes we're seeing. And I want to ask her about what Dr. Fauci said yesterday, which was kind of scary when he said this is only just the beginning. That's coming up right now. Let's get the facts at this.
Sponsored by Midwestern University Multi-Specialty Clinic. The family of George Floyd is told to turn his death into purpose.
Baseball drafts future stars tonight while the current players send a new plan to the owners.
In business, U.S. futures are now pointing up. Dow futures are up about 50 points. Global stocks are mixed. Now with WGN Traffic, here's Mary Vandeveld.
Traffic is sponsored by Plumbers911.com. Things are returning to normal on the CTA Blue Line and Green Line this morning. Still running with some minor delays, though, due to earlier police activity on both lines. In Elgin, an accident westbound Lake at Randall. Accident in Grays Lake at Atkinson and Washington. Also in Arlington Heights, westbound Palatine at 53. Northbound I-65 entrance ramp at 109th is closed until June 16th with some road work there. And bridge lifts for boat runs are set for today starting at 9:30. with the Ashland Avenue Bridge. Those closures will be in effect for about 10 minutes at a time. Do you have a plumbing emergency at your home or business? Don't panic. Call Plumbers 911. Plumbers 911 provides Chicagoland with licensed and highly trained plumbers 24/7. Call Plumbers 911 at 1-833-PLUM-911. I'm Mary Vandeveld from the IDOT Traffic Center, reminding you to drive responsibly. It really is a matter of life or death.
Now the forecast from the Permaseal Weather Center: partly sunny today, a 40% chance of showers. Muggy this morning, but decreasing humidity by the evening hours, high near 81. Mostly cloudy tonight. There is a chance of showers, but decreasing clouds overnight, a low 58, and then mostly sunny tomorrow, high near 80. Partly sunny now, 74 at O'Hare, 76 at Midway and the Lakefront. It's 72 in Aurora. Former Vice President Joe Biden wants the family of George Floyd to turn his death into a purpose to change the world. Video featuring the Democratic presidential nominee playing during Floyd's memorial service in Houston yesterday.
And unlike most, you must grieve in public. And it's a burden. A burden that is now your purpose to change the world for the better. In the name of George Floyd.
Biden praised the family for their bravery despite their grief, while noting America needs to do better. He called for racial justice, listening, and healing in America. Floyd was killed on Memorial Day by Minneapolis police. 4 officers have been charged in his death. 2 people are planning to file a civil rights lawsuit after claiming they were attacked by police last week at the Brickyard Mall outside of Chicago. Lizendra Collins described the incident.
I'm getting hit for no reason by a person I think is supposed to protect me, but they're hitting me. And every time I come out and I see the police and I know they're supposed to be there to protect me, I'm afraid.
Collins and Willie Teague say they were at the mall on May 31st when they saw officers smash the windows of a vehicle and drag 2 women from the car. Collins began recording the incident. Teague says that's when the officers came up to his Jeep and began hitting the vehicle, including smashing the rear windshield. When both exited the Jeep to ask for the officers' badge numbers, one of them hit Collins repeatedly with a baton. 2 officers involved in the incident have been relieved of their police powers pending an investigation. Joliet Mayor Robert Odekirk is refusing to resign after being caught on video getting into a fight with a black protester last month. Odekirk defended his actions yesterday, saying he was acting in self-defense.
For those who choose to be critical, please do not mischaracterize my actions as an attack. I sought to hurt no one, but only to preserve my own personal safety in the middle of the chaos.
In a video, Odekirk appears to grab Victor Williams Jr. by the collar and forcibly walk him backward to a police vehicle. Williams' brother then appears to jump on Odekirk, causing all 3 to fall to the ground. They are then quickly surrounded by police. Dr. Anthony Fauci says that COVID-19 has become his worst nightmare. Mike Bauer reports.
Sounding the alarm over the continued spread of coronavirus in an interview aired to a biotechnology conference yesterday, Fauci said,
"Now we have something that indeed turned out to be my worst nightmare."
Fauci, who spent part of his career studying HIV, said the disease it caused was really simple compared to what's going on with COVID-19. He added that he believes COVID-19 spread can be attributed to the frequency with which sick people were traveling. Fauci says he remains surprised, asking, where's it going to end? We're still at the beginning of it.
21 states and Puerto Rico are seeing a rise in COVID-19 cases, and 14 states, including Arizona, have seen their highest 7-day average grow since the pandemic began. Hospitalizations are also up in Arizona, where ICU units are near capacity. And the Republican National Convention apparently will be split between North Carolina and Jacksonville, Florida, according to reports this morning, so that President Trump can accept his party's nomination before a crowd. North Carolina wanted extensive curtailment of the convention because of COVID-19. Now with WGN Sports, here's Dave Ennett.
Tonight's the draft in Major League Baseball. 5 rounds this year, down from 40 in 2019. The Tigers own the number 1 pick, with Arizona State slugger Spencer Torkelson the top-ranked player. The White Sox go 11th, the Cubs 16th. Latest proposal from the players is for an 89-game season. It would start July 10th and October 11th and expand the postseason to as many as 16 teams. No formal response yet from MLB. The Bears will skip the rest of their virtual offseason after tomorrow. Coach Matt Nagy says they've gotten enough done. Now he wants players to focus on training before they report for camp, likely next month. As NASCAR gets ready to welcome fans back at Miami Sunday and Talladega the following week, Bubba Wallace thinks it's time they make a change. No more Confederate flags. Amazing, these flags are still a common sight at NASCAR races. Wallace, the only full-time African-American driver in the Cup Series, says it's time for NASCAR to ban those flags at its events. Hasn't happened yet. Dave Edit, WGN Sports.
Your money on WGN as we look to the opening bell in about an hour. Dow futures were up about 50 points this morning. NASDAQ futures up nearly 80 points. S&P futures have moved into the green as well, up nearly a third. Markets in Europe are still pretty much in the red. London has moved into the green, but Frankfurt and Paris are still in the negative category there this morning. Losses also in Hong Kong and China, with gains in Tokyo overseas. Ford and Volkswagen will work together to develop a small city van, a larger cargo van, a small pickup truck, and an electric vehicle as part of their global alliance, which was announced last year. The companies today announcing some details of what that venture will yield, which includes that city van created by VW and a one-ton cargo van engineered by Ford, both to be sold by both companies. Also, VW will make a small pickup built on the underpinnings of Ford's Ranger, and Ford will build an electric vehicle for Europe based on VW's modular design. The automakers announced the alliance last July amid a string of industry partnerships designed to share the cost of developing new technologies. Your Money, sponsored by T-Mobile for Business. Visit T-MobileForBusiness.com. And I'm Steve Grzanich on Chicago's very own 720 WGN.
$7:39. Good morning. What happens to your dog's brain when you're home all the time? Ever wonder about this? There was a recent survey, and it revealed 45% of pet owners believe their household's happiness has increased while spending more time with their pets during the quarantine. And several canine experts wrote about what happens to specifically your dog when you're home more. Your dog gets a happy neurohormone boost. Oxytocin, a neurohormone in both dogs and humans, also known as the love hormone, increases over feelings of bonding and pleasure. So when dogs and their owners make eye contact, which is probably happening a lot more now that everybody's home, it's kind of like you're hugging each other with your eyes. And the region of their brain that prevents depression is stimulated. The experts say just being there with dogs really does rouse their brains. One veterinarian says that constant contact and communication with an owner stimulates a number of centers in a dog's brain more intensely than ever before. The scent of an owner activates a region of a dog's brain that is responsible for motivation, reward, and positive expectations. Is your dog responding well these days?
He's exhausted because
sprained tail.
Well, while I was working from home, I would get off the air and take him for a walk. And now, even though I'm coming back in, still we've gotten him into a routine with these long walks a couple times a day. The weather's gotten hot, and he's he's kind of lying around like dogs do.
Well, a number of animal experts have said that, particularly with puppies, it's good to be around them a lot because it helps their brain development. And they say stimulated puppies will grow larger brains with more ganglia. Those are your brain cells. Mm-hmm. And so puppies that have more time with their owners are more likely to grow smarter and be more emotionally balanced.
Oh, well, that's good.
Good time to get
a lot of people have gotten puppies during this time.
Behavior research scientist and chief veterinary officer at Purina, Dr. Reagan McGowan, points out that your pup probably had a nice little routine while you were gone, and we're guessing it included some quiet, long naps. Now, says the doctor, the hustle and bustle of having people home all day is likely disrupting your dog's routine. Depending on your dog's personality, he might be having difficulty adjusting to this new normal and may even be acting out a bit. Dogs can develop anxious behaviors when there are changes to their environments, even if it's just spending more time with you. And any change in a dog's routine can lead to stress.
See, I think that's it. I think that we have interrupted what used to be long naps.
Long naps, a nice long drink of toilet water.
No, not allowed. Not allowed.
Down boy. Studies reveal pet parents who show signs of stress themselves or anxiety actually can pass those feelings to their dogs, which in turn could lead to discomfort for the pet. That's why it's so important for pet parents to remember to prioritize their own emotional and physical health. We're trying to find this pet shrink. I don't know if you're out there. There's somebody that back in the day when I was working on First Thing in the Morning on Channel 5 in the early 90s, there was a pet psychiatrist we used to have on, and it was really entertaining and fascinating. I'm not sure what happened to him, but if you know one, get in touch with us because we need to have a regular visit with a pet shrink here, especially these days. We'll visit with Dr. Eileen Marty here in a couple of minutes. She is the infectious disease specialist who, among other things, travels around the world when there's a outbreak of a disease, and she will give us the latest on the pandemic, and we'll talk to her after we check up on a few things like the weather. Nothing like the 74-mile-an-hour winds we had last night around Rosemont, but we may get some more rain today. What's the latest, Steve?
Yeah, we had some big trees down and power lines down, and that cleanup continues this morning, but the showers look to be moving out of the area this morning. We've been watching them on radar move out of the area, but it will remain muggy at least for part of the day today with partly sunny skies and a high near 81. That humidity decreases as we move into the evening, then mostly cloudy with a chance of showers and decreasing clouds late tonight, low 58. Mostly sunny tomorrow, expect a high near 80. It's 74 now at O'Hare, 76 at Midway, and 77 at the lakefront.
The latest proposal in the baseball negotiations comes from the players. They're calling for 89 games. They still want their full prorated salaries. The owners are not expected to go for that. The MLB draft is tonight, the first round. The White Sox have the 11th pick. The Cubs draft 16th. Tennis star Roger Federer out for the year, a setback following knee surgery earlier this year. Of course, there haven't been that many events to play anyway, but he won't play until 2021.
No major delays on the area expressways or tollways. Traffic is sponsored by the Illinois Department of Transportation. CTA Blue Line is back up and running along with the Green Line after earlier police activity, so that's good news. In Grays Lake, an accident Atkinson at Washington and Westmont at Cass and Burlington, and in Arlington Heights, westbound Palatine at 53. Northbound I-65 entrance ramp at 109th still closed until June 16th with road work. I'm Mary Vandeveld from the IDOT Traffic Center, reminding you to drive responsibly. It really is a matter of life or death.
At Midwestern University, healthcare education is what they do. Their campus in Downers Grove features 6 colleges and 12 degree programs. Here you will benefit from hands-on training, expert faculty mentors, and patient-focused programs. You'll also learn side by side with students in other health professions, modeling the team approach to the 21st century healthcare practice. Learn more about their programs at midwestern.edu. That's midwestern.edu. Midwestern University, tomorrow's healthcare team.
It's 7:48, and Dr. Eileen Marty is an infectious disease specialist and professor at Florida International University. How you doing today, Dr. Marty?
Oh, I'm doing okay. And you, Bob?
About 60%.
Oh dear.
Get me up to 100. What happened with the World Health Organization yesterday? You have worked with them, and they said it still appears to be rare that asymptomatic individuals actually can transmit onward. And then later they said, well, it was just a very few studies. Clear this up for us.
Sure. So I know Mary Vanderkoff, and I can tell you she's an outstanding researcher, a scientist, physician who's been working with coronaviruses for many years. She worked the MERS outbreak in South Korea, and of course she's been in charge of this response for COVID-19 in terms of scientific aspects of the disease, and she's very well versed. What she said, she never said what the interpretation came out. She never said it cannot happen. What she said was consistent with what she had said in February. What she had said in February was, we don't have the data to show this going forward. And it's very difficult to acquire this kind of data too, Bob, if you think about it, because if you detect an asymptomatic person, then you do everything in your power to not let that person go on and cause disease. That being said, epidemiologic studies, separate from the kinds of studies that Maria was talking about, do show that there is asymptomatic spread. So that's more indirect as opposed to the direct evidence that she was citing. Then what she said the other day was, specifically, we now have some evidence that it rarely does happen based on very careful contact tracing studies that some countries have been able to do. And we in the United States have not been able to do those studies very well because we did not test asymptomatic people until very, very recently. So we had no way of actually doing the studies ourselves. And that just complicated the issue for us here in the United States in terms of the way we do those kinds of very careful investigations. So the reason that it was walked back was because it was clearly misinterpreted when she says it's rarely been shown. Yeah, it has rarely been shown, but that's in that particular very hard evidence. What we also know, Bob, is that when you check the numbers of viral particles, and we figure out how many viral particles somebody has based on how fast the slope is as we see the production of positive on the screens that we use to detect the viral RNA. So if that slope is very, very stark, then we know that they have a lot more particles in them. And when you study asymptomatic people, we find a significant proportion of them who have high levels of virus, indicating that they, in fact, at the same levels as some people who are pre-symptomatic or early in their symptoms. And therefore, there's a lot of data that does show that an asymptomatic spreader has enough virus to share and certainly can share it with people around them.
I get it. All right. Now, I'm very curious about these numbers that states are reporting. And a couple of weeks ago, we saw people not practicing social distancing in the Ozarks and other places. It's been 2 weeks now. So I'm looking at the numbers, and I hear that in 14 states there's spikes. But then there's a CNN report that came out that says more than half of states could be undercounting coronavirus cases by not following CDC guidelines. So what's the real story here? What's going on?
There's a mix of things happening, Bob, and of course, every community is different in how the community is managing this particular pandemic and what their risks are. So, and on top of all of that, of course, there are the very correct protests that are going on from the, from recent events. And those protests have accelerated cases in many areas and will continue to do so for a while, since the protests have now been going on for, 15 days or so. And mainly because the way this virus transmits, and we all know this by now, is the closer we are together, and for 15 minutes or longer. So there's distance and there's time, and then there's how many people, because the greater the number of people, the higher the odds are that among that group of people, there will be one or more individuals who are sharing virus, wittingly or unwittingly, and that's a big factor. So, and then it's what protection you're using, whether you're being hygienic, whether you're using the masks, et cetera, et cetera. All those things that we see as somewhat of a problem. Couple all that with the reality that in a number of these instances, there's been use of these toxic gases. So tear gas and pepper spray and similar toxins cause damage to people's airways, period. And that's why people cough. That's why people sneeze. That's, also causes damage to other mucous membranes like your eyes, so you cry. When you cough and you sneeze, you're going to project virus a lot further. That's part of the problem. Moreover, let's say I don't have the virus, but I get tear gas on me, I may cough for weeks after. That's because there's damage to my respiratory system that's ideal for the virus, for me to pick up the virus from somebody else who may be pre-symptomatic, asymptomatic, or so mildly symptomatic that they're in there in the crowd righteously protesting, but affecting everything else. The other thing that's happening with the protests is people are shouting. They're giving out their messages. And as you do that, you have so much force that you're going to propel that virus that much further. And so that's why I was hoping that there would be more peaceful protests, quiet protests with signs, or if you're going to shout something out, use it, don't do it directly, but use a megaphone or some other way of amplifying your voice so as to reduce the risk to everyone that's participating with you.
Another thing I wanted to ask you about, these studies that show blood type may influence the coronavirus. Anything definitive out of those studies?
Very much so. In fact, we ourselves are looking into a number of different factors on cells that we know are very relevant to how the immune system works. So there is no question that certain combinations of what we call major histocompatibility complexes, or in more old-fashioned terms, HLAs, human lymphocytic antigens, the same kind of things that we look for to see whether we can do an organ transplant, a kidney transplant, actually affect how the immune system works at many, many important levels. That, as well as the studies on blood groups, because blood groups are also an indicator of things that we have inherited. We've seen, for example, group A blood people have a higher risk of ending up with severe disease and ending up in hospital than people with type O blood, who seem to have the lower risk overall. But that being said, it's still very, very interesting and very complex, because these MHCs, major histocompatibility compounds, come in many flavors. And that's why organ transplants can be so tricky. And they involve both what we call the innate immune system and the adaptive immune system are very much affected. It's how these little surface things show off that there's a virus to specialized immune cells. And if they're not shaped quite right because of your particular inheritance, then you may be more likely to not be able to fend off the infection or not trigger the right immune response. So these are critical factors that we're looking at and trying to figure out what are the patterns of inheritance that lead people to more susceptibility or less susceptibility to disease as a different way of getting ourselves out of this mess, and also to figure out how we can modify these things to provide better drugs and vaccines that can improve the situation for everyone.
I have more questions, but you're going to get a restraining order on me if I keep going, so I'll save some for next week, okay? Dr. Eileen Marty, always a pleasure talking to you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Bob. Always a pleasure.
News next from the Northwestern Medicine News. If you're buying a new home or refinancing your existing home, you need to call Team Hochberg, your trusted local mortgage professionals. Meet Donnie, a Special Forces veteran who called Team Hochberg to cash out $20,000 for home improvements. Before calling Team Hochberg, Donnie started refinancing with Rocket Loving Lending. David analyzed Donnie's situation and advised him to cancel his Rocket Loving Lending loan because it wasn't the right loan for him. David is helping Donnie enhance his credit to secure a HELOC because that was Donnie's best loan option. So reviewing here, before calling Team Hochberg, Donnie was paying a fortune in closing costs for a loan not in his financial best interest. After calling Team Hochberg, Donnie is enhancing his credit to secure a HELOC, which is in Donnie's financial best interest. If you're a veteran interested in working with a lender who respects your service and who will always look out for your financial best interest, call 312-855-56-DAVID or go to 56david.com. And listen to Home Sweet Home Chicago, hosted by David, Saturdays at 10 a.m. on GN. Homeside Financial Equal Housing Lender, NMLS 112406.
Chicago police officer.
Next stop for the Bears, training camp after tomorrow.
In business, we're about 30 minutes away from the opening bell on Wall Street. U.S. futures are pointing toward gains at the open. Now with WGN Traffic, here's Mary Vandeveld.
Traffic is sponsored by DuckDuckGo Privacy. No delays on the Edens, the Kennedy, Eisenhower in good shape, along with the Stevenson and the Dan Ryan in Westmont. An accident at Cass and Burlington. And also on the south side, a fatal accident investigation is going on. Cottage Grove at 72nd. Keep in mind that tonight, the inbound Eisenhower ramp to the outbound Kennedy, that ramp is going to close tonight. It was supposed to close about a little over a week ago for road work as part of the Jane Byrne Interchange project. However, it was postponed because of the protests. So now the closure takes place at 8 o'clock tonight for 4 months. So you'll have to take the outbound Ryan and do a U-turn detour at Taylor Street. Want the same internet but more privacy? DuckDuckGo's got you covered. They help millions of people like you get privacy online without any trade-offs. With one download, you can search and browse privately, avoiding trackers, all for free. DuckDuckGo, privacy simplified. I'm Mary Vandeveld from the IDOT Traffic Center, reminding you to drive responsibly. It really is a matter of life or death.
And now the forecast from the WGN Chicago Weather Center. Here's meteorologist Morgan Kolkmeyer.
Good morning. Temperatures this morning sit in the 70s and 80s. Very mild start and muggy start with dews still in the low to mid 70s. So humid weather to start out your morning. We'll keep those high dew points throughout your morning and start to cut them as we get into the afternoon hours. So the later we get, the more comfortable it gets, and you'll see a high temperature closer to the low 80s today. Again, still humid with scattered showers and a couple of storms in the morning, and we'll keep a slight shower chance here and there throughout your daytime hours, though many dry hours under a mostly cloudy sky. Winds will be southwest 15 to 20 miles per hour, gusting near 30 and still breezy overnight, keeping that slight rain chance until about 10 o'clock, and then we start start to wind things down and clear things out overnight. Lows in the upper 50s. From the WGN Weather Center, I'm Morgan Kochmeyer.
Partly sunny right now. It's 76 degrees at O'Hare, 74 along the lakefront. It's 75 at Midway. In the suburbs this morning, 71 in Bartlett. It's 76 in Morris. And in Gary this morning, it's 78. An off-duty Chicago police officer has died, apparently from carbon monoxide poisoning. More on that from WGN's Courtney Guzman.
Just minutes before 8 last night, that 36-year-old officer was found unresponsive. He was off duty along with a 29-year-old woman in a home in the 3900 block of West Ainsley, which is in the city's Albany Park neighborhood. Both the officer and the woman were taken to Swedish Covenant in critical condition, but it was found that later that officer had died.
People's Gas tells WGN there were dangerously high levels of carbon monoxide in the home. The 36-year-old officer has been identified as Zhu Meng. COVID-19 numbers in Illinois top 6,000 now. Health officials report nearly 800 new cases and 95 new deaths Tuesday. That 6,000 figure is the total number of deaths in Illinois. The total number of confirmed cases is more than 129,000 since the pandemic began. Governor Pritzker says he remains hopeful that students will be able to return to school in the fall. He says it will be up to the experts.
But I'm not ultimately the right person to make the final call. That is, we have to consider the public health implications, because I think you've seen that there are circumstances in which young people can get a version of coronavirus. We want to make sure that doesn't happen, not to mention all the people who work at our schools.
The governor says the state's also preparing schools for the possibility of more distance learning. The number of cases remains low. The rate of infection at about 3%. According to some of that new testing. Navy Pier reopens today, at least partially, almost 3 months after the pier was locked down by the pandemic. Its tour boats, parking garages, piers, parks, and outdoor dining will reopen for business. But the pier's Ferris wheel and other rides will have to wait a while. Pier employees are required to wear masks and ensure that visitors obey social distancing requirements. Casinos in Illinois and Indiana are getting ready to reopen after more than 3 months of being closed by the pandemic. But before they reopen, they're putting strict guidelines and regulations in place. More from WGN's Pam Jones.
Casinos will have to provide free personal protective equipment and daily health screenings to employees. Visitors and workers will have to wear face coverings. Signs will remind people about social distancing and hand washing. And Illinois casinos will have to routinely disinfect all gaming equipment, including dice and chips. There's no reopening date yet for Illinois casinos, but casinos in Indiana reopen on Monday. Pam Jones, WGN News.
Naperville Centennial Beach will remain closed all summer long. The Naperville Park District says DuPage health officials denied the request for a permit. They had hoped the beach would open by Father's Day. Even if it can reopen in Phase 4, the park says prep work would take weeks. The park says this is the first time the beach will be closed for the season in its 88-year history. And now with WGN Community Corners, here's Ryan Burrow.
Baby Hope's garden, planted in memory of Baby Hope, has been moved to the end of DuPage County Sheriff's Office property in Wheaton. It's made of raised garden beds and tended to by DuPage County inmates. It includes 75 tomato plants, 75 pepper plants, zucchini, cucumber, and herbs. The Sheriff's Office says it's expected to grow as much as 1,500 pounds of produce in its first year. I'm Ryan Burrow with Community Corners on WGN Radio.
Now with WGN Sports, here's Dave Ennett.
The Bears had planned to spend a little longer on their virtual offseason, but just like the teacher letting you out early on a nice day, Coach Matt Nagy's decided to dismiss class sooner than planned.
We've really had a phenomenal 9 weeks of virtual learning. They've been really good, solid weeks. I'm proud of our guys for showing up every day. It's all voluntary, and we've done a lot.
And he says they've done enough, so tomorrow's session will be the last. Major League Baseball players still want those full prorated salaries. They made that clear in their last proposal to MLB, calling for 89 games starting July 10th. The last offer from MLB guaranteed the players 50% of their prorated pay for 76 games. The baseball draft is tonight, just 5 rounds this year. The first round tonight, plus the competitive balance round A. White Sox have the 11th pick tonight, the Cubs the 16th. David at WGN Sports.
Your money on WGN. U.S. consumer prices dropped in May for the third straight month as the pandemic pushed the American economy into recession. Labor Department says consumer price index fell 0.1% last month after tumbling 0.8% in April and 0.5% in March. Excluding food and energy prices, which bounce around from month to month, so-called core inflation fell 0.1%, falling for the third consecutive month for the first time ever. The pandemic and the quarantines meant to contain it pushed the U.S. economy into recession. Weaker demand from customers pushes prices down. Movie theaters could be reopening their doors soon. AMC Entertainment is announcing that they hope to fully open worldwide by July. The theater chain has been closed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, says it lost about $2.2 billion during that period. Now, about 20 minutes away from the opening bell on Wall Street, futures are pointing toward a positive open now. Dow futures were up about 40 points. NASDAQ futures are up about 92. And I'm Steve Grzanich on Chicago's very own 720 WG.
Right? Yeah, we've been waiting forever to get the word on that, and yesterday, right after the show yesterday, actually, the city made the announcement that they have canceled all the summer staples that we know. Air and Water Show officially canceled. Taste of Chicago officially canceled. Summer Dance Chicago officially canceled. All the things that they did in Grant Park, including Lollapalooza, officially canceled. So that means 100,000 music lovers per day. My closest friends, very few of them showering, almost always in the mud. We will all have to find something else to do this year. But the producers of Lollapalooza said the health and safety of the fans and the artists and the staff, the community, the partners, is their highest priority. So I think they made the right decision. Tickets never did go on sale for this. Mm-hmm. So this is not going to be a refund issue at all. And the Lollapalooza people tell us that they're going to put on a weekend-long virtual event that will take place on the weekend that Lollapalooza was to happen, which would have been July 30th through August 2nd. And they say that they're going to put online, lollapalooza.com, performances that have never been seen before from past Lollapaloozas in Chicago, Lollapaloozas that they have around the world. So they say that they're planning some big things online. They're going to be announcing later on this month Probably the biggest deal about this is the money that is going to be lost, both for the city, the tourism money, the hotels, the restaurants, and of course for Lollapalooza. That's a sizable amount of money that they make for this every year. But they say that they're looking forward to getting back on track for next year. So, that beer that I buried in the park last year.
Yeah, go find it.
I got to wait until next year now to go retrieve it. I don't think I'm allowed in the park right now.
Not yet. That's off, but the Chicago Film Office says production could be on pretty soon, huh?
Yeah, this is good news, I think, that it looks like we could be seeing, filming of TV shows and movies. I don't think there are any movies that are going on right now. But certainly we have plenty of regular Chicago television shows that are made here over at the CineSpace Studios on the near west side. And they say that all of that could begin again starting June 15th, which is next Monday. The Chicago Film Office said that they are ready to start issuing permits again, but all productions need to follow guidelines, including the cleaning of the sets every hour and deep cleaning of the sets every night. There will have to be social distancing. There'll have to be face coverings. So that'll mean Chicago PD, Chicago Med, Chicago Fire, among many others. But those are the big three that halted production 2 months ago. Possibly could get back to work very soon.
Also on the cancellation list, and Dean, tell me why HBO Max pulled the plug on Gone with the Wind.
Yeah, the HBO Max just started. And they put on, just loads and loads of amazing movies and television shows and things that are HBO related, things that are Warner Brothers related, really, because it's owned by Time Warner. But Gone with the Wind, the 8-time Academy Award-winning film from 1939, that was one of the films that they were showing. Yesterday, they pulled off of the platform, saying that the movie is a product of its time and depicts ethnic and racial prejudices that have unfortunately been commonplace in American society. They say that these racist depictions were wrong then and are wrong today, and that they may bring back the film at some point, but only with a discussion about the historical context of the time that they're showing and a denouncement of the racist depictions that you see in the film. If you watch the movie, I mean, it's jaw-dropping of what some of the things that are happening and that are said in the movie. Now, the movie came out in 1939, and it depicts the time of the Civil War. So, I mean, that's, it's probably historically accurate of what it is, but HBO just doesn't want any part of it right now without, putting some perspective on the whole thing and what it is. Because I can think of other movies that have, that are incredibly violent, that are incredibly, difficult to watch, but were signs of whatever the times were, right, or times that the movies are depicting. So, you got to look at some of these movies and go, it's a movie.
Yep, and it's time to be sensitive, though, right now.
Exactly.
More from Dean momentarily. Severe weather, though, is back in the area. Steve Grzanich has the latest from the newsroom.
Bob, we have a severe thunderstorm warning that has just been issued for southern Will County, all of Kankakee County, southern Cook County, southeastern Cook County, and northern Lake County in northwest Indiana. The severe thunderstorm warning is in effect until 9:30 this morning. Radar is showing a line of thunderstorms extending from about 6 miles west of Piatone to near Chabance, moving to the northeast at 40 miles per hour. These storms have the ability to produce 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. There could be damage to roofs, siding, and trees. Areas in this warning include Chicago, Hammond, Gary, Orland Park, Tinley Park, Oak Lawn, Calumet City, Maryville, Chicago Heights, East Chicago, Cherryville, Hobart, Lansing, Kankakee, New Lenox, Highland, Blue Island, Dalton, and Park Forest. Again, a severe thunderstorm warning has just been issued until 9:30 for southern Will County, Kankakee County, southeastern Cook County, and northern Lake County. That severe thunderstorm warning until 9:30 this morning.
Another pro sports league is back. Major League Soccer announced today. All 26 clubs, including the Fire, will take part in the MLS is Back tournament starting July 8th at the ESPN Wide World of Sports at Disney World. The final will be held August 11th. Still no deal between baseball players and owners, but the players have made a new proposal. They appear closer to a deal. This one calls for 89 games. The season would start July 10th and end October 11th. And the PGA Tour getting ready for its return tomorrow, the Charles Schwab Challenge and Fort Worth, Texas.
And despite the storms coming through, the roadways are in fairly good shape with no delays on any of the expressways at this time. Due to an accident in Bensonville, though, York near Foster, also in Westmont at Cass and Burlington. Metro Union Pacific Northwest train 626 due in at 826 is running about 20 minutes late due to some dispatching problems on the south side. Fatal accident investigation going on at Cottage Grove and 72nd. I'm Mary Vandeveld from the IDOT Traffic Center reminding you to drive responsibly. It really is a matter of life.
You know, our world has changed. Every time you go out and need a face mask, you think about that. But the kind of face mask you wear matters. Not all offer the same protection. And a highly recommended consumer covering is the Boomer Naturals 30-day, 30-use protective face cover in sizes for adults and children. It's made with 3 cloth layers infused with nanosilver technology, which can reduce particles getting to your nose and mouth. Many studies show how effective nanosilver technology is with face coverings. This one's very comfortable. It's easy to breathe and speak with it on. It's made for breathable protection, even for those with sensitive skin. And these face covers can be used up to 30 days if you just hand wash them with soap and water at the end of the day. Boomer makes them very affordable, too, less than 30 cents a day. Order at boomernaturals.com. Use code BOB20 at checkout and get 20% off. Free shipping and handling when you spend $50. Go to boomernaturals.com.
Early morning, stay safe and stay connected with Morgan Kochmeyer's weather forecast and Sarah Gendra's traffic reports. Weekdays 4 to 6 on WGN TV Morning News.
8:21 in the middle of Dean Richards' entertainment report here. We were talking about Gone with the Wind. I guess it's good to remember that Hattie McDaniel became the first African-American actress to win an Oscar for that movie. And talking about that gets us right into the story about a mansion in Atlanta that Steve Harvey bought, didn't he?
Yeah, this was a mansion. I practically can't even call it a home because it's even beyond mansion status. Back in 2007, Tyler Perry built this home overlooking the Chattahoochee River in Atlanta. He lived there for several years and then sold it to a televangelist named David Turner, who turned it into a television studio for $23.5 million. It became the highest priced home ever in the history of Atlanta. And yesterday, Steve Harvey purchased what is called the Palace of Versailles Mansion in Atlanta. It's 34,000 square feet and has got everything in it. It is modeled after the Palace of Versailles in France. Steve Harvey picked it up for a sweet $20 million. It's got 7 bedrooms, 14 baths, 2-story library, pool, tennis court, gym, spa, theater. It's got everything that you need. Oh, and a helipad for $20 million.
Well, you know what? I don't know if he's still hosting like 20 million TV shows, but I guess he saved some money.
Yeah, he's going to need it. He's going to need to be hosting 20 million TV shows with a mortgage like that, I would think.
Let's talk a little bit about New York theater and the open letter that was sent there.
Yeah, this is kind of an ugly thing. Several extremely prominent members of the New York theater community put out an open letter addressed to what they called white American theater, accusing the Broadway theater community of tokenism, white privilege, patriarchy, racism, bias, and hypocrisy, saying that they have all been discriminated against and abused by people who run the theater. And Lin-Manuel Miranda of Hamilton fame signed it, Viola Davis, Sandra Oh, Leslie Odom Jr., Sterling K. Brown, Cynthia Erivo, and many, many, many others. Those are probably the biggest names that are on here. They are demanding change. They're telling the New York theater community, the people who run the theater on Broadway, that we have been observing you, we will be watching you, and we're going to say something if theater ever gets going again.
And finally, what's the story of Vanderpump Rules and the stars of that show?
Well, I am not overly familiar with the show myself, but I know that it is popular on the Bravo channel. It's a reality show, and 4 of its stars actually have been fired. 2 of the more prominent, Stassi Schroeder and Kristen Doty, were fired after another actress by the name of Faith Stowers, who appeared on the show a couple of years ago, revealed that Schroeder and Doty had taken what she said were racist actions against her, that while she was on the show, the pair of actresses that were fired called the police on her, accusing her of stealing something that she had absolutely nothing to do with, but it was taken seriously because that she is saying because she was black. And the 2 actresses were fired because of that action. They have issued very lengthy apologies on Instagram saying the people that they are today are not the people that they were then, and they're very sorry. 2 other cast members on the show named Max Boyens and Brett Capriati also were let go because they, you go back into your Twitter accounts, and if you say and do stupid and hateful things, people are going to find them, and that's what happened with these 2 guys. They were also fired. They also issued very similar apologies as well.
Dean, did you ever have occasion to cross paths with Dick Johnson?
I did. I worked on many a telethon with Dick Johnson. I was at many a charity event with Dick Johnson. I never worked with him when he was at ABC 7 or NBC 5, but admired him as a viewer for many, many, many years for being a great anchorman, flawless anchorman, a great reporter. And I know that my personal contact with him over the years was nothing but great. He was just a wonderful man, very kind, very respectful, and I was shocked. I thought it was a fake story when it first came out, because he's only 66 years old, but died of a respiratory illness with which he lived for several times. Apparently, the reports are that this was not COVID-19 related, but when the shutdown began, he stayed in northern Michigan, where I guess it got worse, and that's where he passed away. So our condolences to his wife and kids and grandchildren and everybody that worked with him at NBC and ABC. No nicer man, no greater professional than Dick Johnson.
Yeah, absolutely. He was in Michigan to try to stay healthy because he had this underlying condition, this respiratory condition, and they are saying his death was not connected to the COVID-19 virus. There were many, many occasions that I got to chat with him in the NBC5 newsroom during my years over there. Yeah. Great writer, and as you say, just a great guy. And really shocking, Rob Stafford talked to Dick just a couple of days ago. He had been in the hospital recently, but he was feeling okay. And as Rob said, he was his typical optimistic self just the other day. So that was a tough one to hear about Dick Johnson.
Yeah.
We will miss his presence on TV news for sure. And those of us lucky enough to run into him off the air will miss him a lot.
Absolutely. And, a very young man at 66 years of age to lose a battle like this at such a young age is tragic.
It is. All right, Dean, we will talk to you tomorrow.
See you then.
Yes, sir. It is almost 8:29, and coming up in a little bit, we'll talk to the president of the Fraternal Order of Police about what is going on and what he thinks of the suggestions to reform police departments around the country and here in Chicago. That'll be an interesting conversation because there are many sides to this, and we'll get to that shortly after our 8:30 news. A lot to get to right now, though, including, well, I guess for the next hour or so anyway, you got to be on the lookout for some severe weather. Into the newsroom we go.
We'll have the latest on that severe thunderstorm warning that includes a number of counties in just a moment. Now an update on what's coming in sports.
Another pro sports league announces it's back.
In business, the opening bell is ringing right now on Wall Street. We expect all of the U.S. averages to open in the green this morning, with the Dow up just a few points. Now with WGN traffic, here's Mary Vandeveld.
Seeing quite a few suburban accidents this morning, but otherwise the expressways are in fine shape. Keep in mind, Westmont, an accident has just been cleared at Cass in Burlington. Now an accident in Wooddale at Irving Park Road. Metro Union Pacific Northwest train 626 is running about 20 minutes late due to an earlier dispatching problem. Southside fatal accident investigation at Cottage Grove and 72nd, northbound I-65 entrance at 159th closed until June 16th with some road work there. I'm Mary Vandeveld from the IDOT Traffic Center, reminding you to drive responsibly. It really is a matter of life or death.
Another forecast from the WGN Chicago Weather Center, the Permaseal Weather Center, that severe thunderstorm warning is out there until 9:30 this morning, issued for southern Will County, for Kankakee County, for southeastern Cook County, and northern Lake County in Indiana. Radar is showing a severe thunderstorm extending from about 6 miles west of Peatone to near Shabance, moving to the northeast at 40 miles per hour. This storm expected to impact Chicago, city of Chicago, Hammond, Gary, Orland Park, Tinley Park, Oaklawn, and a number of other communities as well. 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts are possible. We expect damage to roofs, siding, and trees as this storm blows through. And if you're outdoor, you need to seek indoor shelter immediately. We'll keep you posted on that as we move forward through this newscast and through the morning here on 720 WGN. The Reverend Al Sharpton says justice will come for George Floyd, but only if reforms happen in police departments across the country.
Until until the law is upheld and people know they will go to jail, they're going to keep doing it because they're protected by wickedness in high places.
Sharpton was speaking at Floyd's funeral yesterday in Texas. He also promised the movement would not rest until there was one standard of justice for the world. Sharpton told people to not forget Floyd, who died on Memorial Day after an officer held his knee on Floyd's neck for almost 9 minutes. That officer and 3 others have been arrested and charged in the killing. Young community activists from the group Voices of Chicago in Chicago, Voices of Youth in Chicago, joined city and state leaders yesterday, calling for Chicago public schools to remove police from schools in the wake of the Floyd death. State Representative LaShawn Ford says the state sends police into areas that need the help most.
Not social service help, not behavioral health support, not help for students that's homeless. They send police. What kind of help is that? It's help to add to the school to prison pipeline, and I stand against that practice.
The group is calling for the city to spend $33 million on mental health resources rather than paying for police in schools. A top expert with the World Health Organization is backtracking on comments about COVID-19. Dr. Maria Van Kerkhove had suggested yesterday that people who are asymptomatic and show no symptoms rarely transmit coronavirus to others. But now she says she was only referring to a small number of studies which attempted to track asymptomatic cases. 21 states and Puerto Rico are seeing a rise in COVID-19 cases, and 14 states, including Arizona, have seen their highest 7-day average since the pandemic began. Hospitalizations are also up in Arizona. Dr. Sam Durrani is the chief of COVID task force at Honor Health Medical Center in Phoenix.
If we continue at a rate like this, we're facing a significant chance that we're going to have to shut down the state again.
In Arizona, ICU units are nearly full from COVID patients. A suburban boy who won a hospital gown design competition won't get his prize because of his mother's racist texts. The Starlight Children's Foundation named the 6-year-old boy from Homer Glen the winner of its annual contest. The winning design gets mass-produced, and kids in hospitals get to wear those gowns. According to the Chicago Tribune, screenshots of racist text messages that the boy's mother admitted to writing were posted online. Officials say they can't, in good conscience, manufacture a children's hospital gown tied to racist comments. And now with WGN Sports, here's Dave Ennett.
We already know the plans for the NBA and the NHL to return. Baseball still in limbo. Now, Major League Soccer has announced it's back. In fact, that's exactly what it's saying. The MLS is Back tournament featuring all 26 teams beginning July 8th at Disney World in a World Cup type format. Baseball holds its draft tonight, the first of 5 rounds. Tonight, the White Sox draft 11th, the Cubs 16th. Baseball players have sent the owners in other proposals, still seeking their full prorated salaries, this time for an 89-game season that would start July 10th. NASCAR runs again tonight, another Wednesday Cup Series race, this one at Martinsville, and Bubba Wallace will be racing with what's described as a Black Lives Matter paint scheme on his car. The number 43 car, mostly black with hashtag Black Lives Matter on the quarter panel. And on the hood, an image of a white hand clasping a black hand. I'm Dave Ennett, WGN Sports.
Your money on WGN. We're open for business now on Wall Street with the Dow down now 63 points in the early going at 27,200. The NASDAQ is up 47, almost 1%, and the S&P is flat. Global stocks were generally mixed in the overnight hours and early morning hours. The Fed will be revealing its first forecast for the economy and interest rates since late last year today. Central bankers skipped making projections in March, just as the pandemic forced the abrupt shutdown of the U.S. economy. The Fed is not expected to take any action on rates or policy today after the end of its 2 days of meetings. The Federal Reserve chairman is expected to have a virtual news conference online. Rising interest rates did nothing to deter an onslaught of mortgage demand from home buyers. Applications for loans to purchase a home rose 5% last week from the previous week and were 13% higher than a year ago. For the week, the average contract interest rate for a 30-year fixed mortgage rose to 3.38% from 3.37%. And I'm Steve Brzianich on Chicago's very own 720 WG.
Good morning, 8:38. Bob Sirott and Company, and we have the new and improved way to access some of our show features and interviews. If you go to WGNradio.com/Sirott, that's all you got to do now, right? You don't have to go searching for another page or a show page to click in. You just go to WGNradio.com/Sirott, and you'll get there. And among the features currently playing, you'll see that very interesting 30-minute interview we did with Larry Lujak on Chicago Tonight back in 2003. We put that up there in honor of what would have been Larry's 80th birthday Saturday, and it's kind of an interesting half hour. So check that out. Looking at emails and various messages in the mailbox here. Not sure how to take this one. Bob, your voice and speech pattern is the best Zen you put out, as it lulls people to unconsciousness. Should I take offense at that? I'm not sure.
Oh,
I'm not sure. That's good? That's a good thing?
So I think that's... Don't you guys think so? Yes.
Well, yeah. I mean, in the morning, you don't want somebody screaming at you.
Right.
Well, this is probably regarding the moment of Zen that we do from time to time. Why don't we try it out again? Because we have something very special for you this morning. Our moment of Zen is coming from outer space. There apparently was a mysterious fast radio burst. These are millisecond-long bursts of radio waves that astronomers use to trace to various galaxies. They don't know the actual cause of these bursts. They don't repeat. They just come out as short, energetic radio waves.
It has to be aliens.
You think?
Yeah, it has to be. I saw this in the movie Contact.
Take me away. Okay, can I be first in line? I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Let's see. These mysterious fast radio bursts help detect missing matter in the universe. Researchers believe they could be due to the orbit of a massive star, a black hole, or a dense neutron star. The burst pattern you're about to hear as part of our moment of Zen was detected while using the Lovell telescope at the Jodrell Bank Observatory in the United Kingdom. And as you listen to it, try to relax, try to clear your mind of all thoughts, see what comes into your brain. Tense down from your toes, relax your lower back, maybe some head circles. Keep your eye on the road, though, if you're driving. Deep breaths, and here it is, our moment of Zen from outer space. Joe, I'm confused. Which part of that is actually from outer space?
Sorry, your voice is so zen-like. I'm having trouble.
Is there a musical instrument that the astronomers detected? Are those swooshes the actual radio bursts from outer space, do we think?
It's like a cymbal or something. Clash.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they have any microphones on the spaceships, but I will find out how they got this recorded.
Because I saw this in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Remember that? Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
So the aliens do know how to play music.
When I first saw that movie, I loved it so much. Believe it or not, I was there with my niece, and we sat there through the next showing of the movie. We looked at it twice. All right, come back to Earth here. It's 8:43 right now, and we're going to talk to the president of the Fraternal Order of Police next. But right now, we need to find out what's going on outside because it's dark out again, Steve.
Yeah, the city of Chicago is actually under a severe thunderstorm warning until 9:30 this morning. That severe thunderstorm warning is also in place for portions of Kankakee, Will, and Lake County over in Indiana. The radar right now is showing a line of severe thunderstorms extending from Monee to near Bradley. These storms are moving to the northeast at 40 miles per hour. The National Weather Service says that they have the capability of producing 70